Hey, welcome everyone again to the Delano King podcast. We begin today's show by extending thanks to the Joseph Boakai administration and the Asset Recovery Task Force for inducting Nora Finabono and 40 others in what has been reported as a 6 million money laundering scandal. This has been my prayer for a long time, that a day will come that those who seek political offices and use their power to loot Liberia, an institution of this kind established by the Joseph Boakai administration will be established to go after criminals who loot poor and innocent children of their future. So today, I want to say thank you to the Joseph Boakai administration. But when the indictment news broke out, when the breaking news came out, there were a lot of Liberians celebrating, which is normal in our society. Most of the time, people celebrate for things that they have no idea of. But when this breaking news came out, there were a lot of Liberians who took social media and celebrated the indictment of Finabono and 40 other criminals, and which is good. But I also believe that many of you who celebrated, some of you celebrated primarily for political reasons. Some of you celebrated primarily for political reason. Others also celebrated out of frustration and hoping for justice. So the celebration, I analyze it in two ways. Some celebrated for political reasons. Others celebrated out of frustration with the belief that justice will be served. But on this show today, I want to ask all those who celebrated and all those who are still celebrating, I want to ask a deeper question. I want to ask you all a deeper question. And that question is, was the Asset Recovery Task Force established to pursue justice for all Liberians or to punish only members of the former CDC administration? This is a question that the Asset Recovery Task Force needs to answer, and the Joseph Boakai administration need to answer. Was this task force, was this Asset Recovery Task Force established to pursue justice for all Liberians or to punish only members of the former CDC administration? Now, if the task force truly exists to serve the Liberian people, if this task force that inducted criminal Finabono and the other 40 individuals, if this task force truly exists to serve the Liberian people, then in my view, it should operate on principles of fairness and transparency. And that's why I asked the first question. That's why I asked that first question. And I'll repeat that question again. Was the Asset Recovery Task Force established to pursue justice for all Liberians or to punish only members of the former CDC administration? So if the task force truly exists to serve the Liberian people, then it should operate on principles of fairness and transparency. Can we say that this task force, Asset Recovery Task Force, can we say it is operating on the principle of fairness and transparency? Can we say that? Can we say that? Now, the recovery of stolen asset must not begin and end with one political party. The recovery of stolen assets must not begin and end with one political party. Because if that happens, then we are creating chaos upon chaos and upon chaos. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us be sincere with ourselves. Let us be sincere with ourselves for a second. Because what I come to realize is that the greatest pain any man will ever experience in his lifetime is to deceive himself. And Liberians, we are good at deceiving ourselves. You will see the reality and act like it doesn't exist. Or sometimes you want to replace the fact with lies and deceive yourself. But let us be sincere with ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. The looting of Liberia did not start with the CDC administration. As a matter of fact, whatever we are experiencing today in terms of looting Liberia is as the result of what took place yesterday. The only reason many Liberians are crying every single day, oh, the country is hard, oh, life is hard, oh, this, oh, that, is because the men and women in offices today are country boys, are country people. They have no plans. They don't even know what the heck they are doing. They don't know. But those days, when the people you call Congo people, even though I don't believe anybody consider Congo, but the people you call Congo people, when they were in power those days, they had their own issues. But people did not cry compared to today's date because they knew what they were doing. Back in the day, they had something called LPA. If you work for government, you can go to any Lebanese store and take whatever you wanted at a time. And the Lebanese people will get their pay from your paycheck automatically, or whatever way system they had set up that time. So you had no reason of crying for food. You had no reason of saying, oh, I don't have food, money to feed my people, or my children, or my family. Because you could go to the Lebanese store and take one bag of rice, too, oil, and this, and they will get a pay from your paycheck. So they had LPA set up. So they understood the game they play in the early days. If they have $1 billion to spend, they will spend 500 and take the remaining balance of whatever left. So they were giving you at the same time taking from you. But because today leadership in Liberia, they have no idea of what they are doing, that's why we're running into all of this problem, because they are greedy. But the reality is that the looting of Liberia did not start with the CDC administration. It began long before, since 1847. It has been perpetrated by successive governments that use public office as a means of enrichment rather than service. I repeat, the looting of Liberia did not start with the CDC administration. It began long before, since 1847. It has been perpetrated by successive governments that use public office as a means of enrichment rather than service. So this looting started today. It started since 1847, and maybe way before that. This whole looting of Liberia started from George Weah administration. So if we say asset recovery task force. That means their responsibility is to recover assets that have been stolen, not by only the George Weah administration, but by previous administration. Because these are assets that they stole. All these other former leaders and government officials, they stole assets. That's why you name it asset recovery. So if the looting of Liberia began long before, since 1847, why are you starting your recovery process with the George Weah administration? Why? Why? Let us keep that why for a second. Why? Why you started with the George Weah administration? So if this asset recovery task force, if it is genuine, then it should have started its work by tracing the trail of corruption through Arthur Barclay days administration, William Tubman administration, William Tubman administration, Samuel Doe administration, and one of the most corrupt administration, the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration, and every other administration that came before George Weah. I repeat, if the asset recovery task force is genuine, then it should have started its work by tracing the trail of corruption through Arthur Barclay administration, William Tubman administration, William Tubman administration, Samuel Doe administration, and one of the most corrupt administration, the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration, and every other administration that came before George Weah. So why didn't start from 1847? Why didn't start with the first president of the Republic of Liberia, Joseph Jingin Rabo, and walk their way down? Why they started with George Weah administration? Because the attacks to recover asset, stolen asset by previous and present administrations. So in my view, there was to start from what? The first president, and come down to chronological order. Start with Joseph Jingin Rabo, next to Joseph Jingin Rabo, and if even you decide not to start with Joseph Jingin Rabo, why you start from the government before George Weah? Because that government looted more than anything Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. If even you say, okay, we don't want to go, maybe from President Taylor or whosoever president before Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, maybe you say, okay, Liberian people don't need all those assets. We're going to forget about that. But the two most recent administration, why didn't start with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf first? Why did CDC, the members or former official of the CDC party, why they became the first target? And there's a strong possibility they will be the first and last target. Why? So it's not just a celebration. It's not just a dancing. It's not just a happiness. It's the question one asks within himself or herself. It's the question you are willing to ask the leadership. It's the question you are willing to ask whosoever leading or heading this asset recovery task force to answer. Why did they start with the George Weah administration? Why? They were to start with administration that came before George Weah. So the process they took, beginning with George Weah former official within the George Weah administration. Look, the truth is that even the baby in his or her mother belly is aware that George Weah administration looted on an industrial scale. Is the truth. And that same baby in his or her mother's stomach is aware that every man and women who seek political offices across Liberia, their primary goal is to loot. Everybody aware of that. This is not something that we need to be schooled. Nobody knows sit in class to be taught that people get in offices with the mindset of looting. This is the norm in Liberia. This is the norm in Africa, even though some countries are waking up. But this is the norm. We all know that. Nobody knows sit and say go to school for somebody to teach you. No. Even the least position in government, the city mayor, they all vomited money when George Weah was elected. But the same thing happening in this administration. So we all know that they looted. But yesterday, you demolished the headquarters. Then today, they became the primary target for the Asset Recovery Task Force. So why you start? Let's say, okay, the other administration, whatever they looted, they don't want to recover those assets. Maybe the Liberian people don't need it. Great. But why didn't start with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration? Why the George Weah administration became the primary target? Former official of the George Weah administration became the primary target. So this opened room for questioning. And that question is simple. Is this really about justice or political revenge? This whole Asset Recovery Task Force stuff, is it really about justice or political revenge? Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, the truth is that these are some of the reasons that led us into so many years of civil war. Because when people get into office and they use the power invested in them to treat people like leper because of political disagreement, or to go after previous administration because they disagree with them. All of these things create hate, and it leads us into some useless civil unrest. And this is why when these things happen, we just can't wake up and begin to celebrate. Oh yeah, they lock her up. Oh yeah, they indicted her. Oh yeah, her daughter is this. We all know these people, they are all criminal. George Weah looted, like I said, on an industrial scale. That is the fact. No one can argue it. No one. Let's be very clear. I said this earlier. Yes, the George Weah administration looted Liberia on an industrial scale. Nobody can argue that. Nobody. This man played soccer all his life, and he barely had a good house to live in after he retired. He became president, and he started vomiting property, houses, buildings. All of these things, he began to vomit them, like some demon vomiting something. We know they looted. That's the fact. The George Weah administration looted Liberia on an industrial scale. No one can argue that. Even though some people will argue because they're stupid and because they are glued to political parties instead of the country. But this is the fact. They looted. And yes, those responsible for looting the country, including this other criminal called Finabodo, those responsible must face justice to the full extent of the law. And in my view, If I was president of the Republic of Liberia, these kind of people, I don't have praising for them. I won't have praising for them. Once you are found guilty, I'm killing you. Because I live with the view that whenever a government official loot the country of a penny, there's a strong possibility that thousands of innocent and poor children will go to bed hungry, will die from hunger, won't have good hospital. Well, let me not say hospital. Won't have good clinic, because we barely have clinic in Liberia before I talk about hospital. Won't have good access to good education. So if you can steal from the poor, why must you live? I'll kill you. So we are all aware of this. They looted. But my problem is the way in which this asset recovery task force is carrying on its mission. That's my problem. Because anything you're doing in life, you have to use wisdom. CDC is the largest political party in Liberia. The largest. Yesterday, you you demolish the headquarters. Few weeks later, asset recovery task force, whatever bullshit they call it, was established. And this very CDC, former officials became the primary target. That's not wisdom. Wisdom tells me, okay, asset recovery, these people's responsibility is to recover asset. Asset from who? Is it from one government? Will you tell me that the CDC government is the only government that looted Liberia? No. Ellen Johnson said he looted more than CDC. And even the Joseph Boakai government looting as well. So wisdom tells me that your recovery asset must be executed chronologically, in chronological order. That is, who was the first president? Let's go after him. His children, his grand, even if he dead, dig the dead body and ask that the bone question. Whatever property he built that he left behind, confiscate it and turn it over to the Liberian government. Now, if you came down at China and at the end, after Helen Johnson Sirleaf, and you come after George Weah, then we see the spirit of transparency and fairness. But you just established nonsense and attacking George Weah people. We know the story, but you set the foundation in a way that you won't leave room for argument by using wisdom, making sure that this nonsense will be based on fairness and transparency. And yes, those responsible must face justice to the full extent of the law. But justice cannot be selective. I repeat, justice cannot be selective. CDC former official cannot be your primary target. Okay, we're going to put them in jail. We're going to take off in Abono looted property. The millions of dollars she stole from the Liberian government when they were in office. And all of these things they build and build and build and build. Great, we're going to go after them. We're going to go after them. We're going to put them in jail. These people should be your last target. They shouldn't be your first target. Because if they become your first target, then you leave room for people like me to question. Justice cannot be selective. True accountability must cut across all administrations, including the current one. That's what we want to see. Will the task force also investigate and indict criminal like Thomas Falla? Will the task force investigate and indict him? This is a man who was set in plank yesterday. Unfortunately, He won election on the same CDC, corrupt CDC ticket. And within a blinking of an eye, begin to build buildings across Liberia, schools across Liberia, and now he big money boy. The question one must ask, where he got the money from? And a very reliable source, someone who used to work in his compound, the Thomas father, a reliable source told me a few years ago that the very money that the Liberian people got in the street demanding their money, it was in his compound that money was distributed. Will the Asset Recovery Task Force team investigate and indict criminal Thomas Fowler? I don't think so. Because now he in the inner circle of Joseph Boakai. Will Rachel Cohn be investigated and indicted also? Will the horse be audited, investigated, and indict those who are in the habit of looting Liberia? Will Rachel Cohn be indicted, investigated, and indicted? Even, how you call her, Kanga Lawrence, or whatever the hell her name is, it is alleged that she has a healthcare business in the state in her sister's name. Will the Asset Recovery Task Force look into that? And if it is truth, indict her also? Will other criminals within the Joseph Boakai inner circle who have looted Liberia and still looting Liberia on an industrial scale be investigated and indicted? Will that happen? If the answer is no, then this Asset Recovery Task Force is nothing but a witch hunt. Then it was established to target nobody else, no other party but the CDC. Let me be very clear. I support whatever institution established by the government to go after criminals. Like I said earlier, I won't put you in jail if I were president. Once you are found guilty, we'll take everything from you. I will make sure I make your generation, your fourth and fifth generation, life uncomfortable on earth to the point that they will want to bury themselves. And you found guilty, I will kill you. Because anyone who loot from the poor, who steal from the poor, you don't deserve to live. Why the Asset Recovery team didn't go after Samuel Doe? They could have confiscated his property in Granger and turned it over to the Liberian government. That property could be turned into something different. Why didn't go after all of these people? Why CDC officials, former official of government from the CDC party? Why? So if all the people are asked, names are listed earlier and asked the question, if they will be investigated and indicted, if the answer is no, then this is nothing again but a witch hunt. And if we are not careful, I see us heading in the wrong direction as a nation. Any public official, past or present, from Joseph Jingye Raba administration, that's the past, then Joseph Boakai administration, who uses power to rob Liberia of its dignity and development, has betrayed the nation. Are we saying Joseph Boakai had not betrayed the nation? Are we saying so? Are we saying it's only the CDC party or the Judge Weah administration? Is that the only administration that had deceived or betrayed Liberia? I don't think so. So then why they became the primary target? Establishing the Asset Recovery Task Force is an important important step, but it can only restore integrity if it enforces the rule of law without the interference from current or future precedents. This is a very, very important step that can restore the nation's integrity if and only it enforces, that is the Asset Recovery Task Force, enforces the rule of law without interference from current and future precedents. Did Joseph Boakai interfere with this? Did he establish the asset recovery team to go after CDC, former official of the CDC? We need to ask this question. For the asset recovery team to be successful, this body must be led by what are called competent, principled, and fearless Liberians who will pursue justice with all party bias. That's what I believe in. Because I strongly believe that this asset recovery team, once they lock up all those they want to lock up from the Judge Weah administration, that's going to be the end of it. But then, are you only after the asset that were looted by the Judge Weah administration? Or we're going to start from Joseph Jingin Robert and work our way down? But if we only focus on one party, that is a witch hunt. I repeat, for the Asset Recovery Task Force to be successful, this body must be led by competent, principled, and fearless Liberians who will pursue justice without partisan bias. But ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not about the authority you hold or the power to punish those for crime you yourself are guilty of. That is not leadership. That is not leadership. Leadership is not about the authority you hold or the power to punish those for crimes you yourself are guilty of. True leadership is built on example. True leadership is built on example. How can you indict people, put them behind bars for crime they committed that you yourself, you are currently committing? That's hypocrisy. That's evil. How you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? When you're done with all of these things and you go home, how do you sleep? Leadership is built on example. The reason why the honor men loot Liberia is because they see the head looting. And like I said earlier, there's no doubt. Every president in the history of Liberia, they all looted. But it is worse today because the men and women who run for offices, they already know their mission before running for office. They know their mission. They don't know what the heck they're doing. They only go, that's why you see every day they are causing each other mom. Because the primary, maybe except Yeke, the primary focus is the money. What they can get. What they can get. Not the poor, not the suffering. You imagine All your government officials, where they go for medical treatment, Ghana or Dubai. But something tells them that they are not capable of building their own healthcare sector. What they're capable of doing is to steal, loot, kill, and destroy. That's what they're capable of. And when they're sick, they get on plane and go to Ghana. They're sick, get on plane and go to Dubai. I wish I knew some of the hospitals they get treatment from in Ghana. Because I would just sign a good deal with some of the doctors there and say, look, whenever Liberian government official come here for treatment, make sure he return in black bag, or make sure she return in black bag. And when they start returning in black bags, there's a strong possibility that a sense of urgency will come. They will develop a sense of urgency to say, you know what, let us develop in our own healthcare sector. If the Ghanaians had not changed their mind of the country to think in the interest of the country, will you go there for medical care? If they can do it, why can't you do it? When you only concerned about looting the country and not the people. They're only concerned about looting the country and not the people. Remember the word of Jesus. Remember the word of Jesus. He said, let the one among you who is without sin be the first to cast the stone. Whoever is among you who is without sin, be the first to cast the stone. You see, at the time, this young girl was getting ready to be stoned to death by all the religious leaders and all the priests and all of these people who felt that they were so righteous and so holy and all of those things, because why? She did some little bit prostitution work. And they all took the stone, getting ready to stone her, getting ready to condemn her and everything. And Jesus stood up and he said, if anyone among you who is without sin, be the first to throw the stone. And they look at each other and they put their hands down and the stone. And this is what I see happen in our daily lives. This is what I see happening with this asset recovery task force. That's what I see happening. They are judging people, indicting people, putting people behind bars for the same thing they are doing. But the question now is, can Joseph Boakai honestly cast the first stone and declare that he and his family have never benefited from corruption since he took office? Can he cast the first stone? If he and his family had never looted Liberia, directly or indirectly, since he took office, can Joseph Boakai cast the first stone? Some of you who call yourself John the List, how my friend can call it, in Liberia, these are questions you need to ask your president. These are questions you need to ask Edwin Martin, who did this nonsense investigation with the asset tax to indict Fina Bondo and all the other criminals. These are questions you need to ask them. Can Joseph Boakai, like I said, leadership is example. Can Joseph Boakai honestly, sincerely cast the first stone and declare that he and his family have never benefited from corruption, directly or indirectly? Now, if he cannot cast the first stone, then why is his administration going after Judge Weah? Then I will call that nothing but a complete hypocrisy. So if you are the leader, you have to make sure that your hands, your feet, your everything on you are clean from corruption, from looting Liberia, before pointing your finger or before even establishing the Asset Recovery Task Force to start indicting people for the same thing you did. This is a complete hypocrisy. Can Joseph Boakai do that? His son been flying around from country to country in business and first class that he never did yesterday. Whose money he used? He said his own money, the Liberian people money. So then why are you indicting people for something you did? He said because of political reason. What's the catch behind that? These are questions you need to ask yourself instead of just celebrating. Can Edwin Mountain, head of the Asset Recovery Task Force, whoever he carried out the investigation, can he do the same and be the second person to cast a stone by saying, since he was appointed in this capacity, since he was appointed in this position, he had not carried out any corrupt activity? He had not stolen money? Can he be the second person to cast a stone? If he cannot, then why are they going after people who have done the same thing they are doing? Why do that? That's hypocrisy. If leadership is truly about example, then why hasn't the investigation begun with those in Joseph Boakai's inner circle? I said leadership is an example. It's about example. That's leadership. You just don't wake up and say, do this because I'm a leader. No. So if leadership is truly about example, then why hasn't the investigation begun with those in the Boakai's inner circle? They're running after people from former previous administration. Why? If it is wrong to loot your country, if it is wrong, it must be wrong everywhere, regardless of who commits it. If it is wrong, which of course it is wrong to loot the country, it shouldn't be wrong only with one political party and it's right with the ruling party. No, it shouldn't be that way. If it is wrong, it must be wrong everywhere, regardless of who commits it. This is the gospel truth. So again, ladies and gentlemen, what separates Joseph Boakai from Nora Finabono when it comes to looting the nation's wealth? What separates them? Maybe the only answer I got is he's the president and she's a former official of government. That's all. But nothing separates them. He looting, she looted. It is alleged that Joseph Boakai and his administration spent $1.5 million United States dollar renovating his personal home in rehab. Think about that though. And he established the Asset Recovery Task Force. $1.5 million was spent renovating his personal home in rehab. Prior to him becoming president, good food, he never had it. When it rained, the water poured in his living room. They have buckets sitting down there. He was hoping that LEC will come on for him to get light. But since he took office, his home It's not one of the best homes. He and his wife have become, I told someone the last time when election was going on, when everybody was running, trying to vote, and everybody said, oh, Joseph Boakai won't loot the country because he's an old man. He ain't gonna, and I told someone, look, don't mix age with poverty. Don't miss one being humble with poverty. Don't confuse those two things. There's something powerful in poverty. Poverty is a disease that is very powerful. It's a chronic disease because poverty can make a 1-year-old look like 75 years old. Poverty. Poverty can make one become humble. And to you think he's humble. Because, no, don't be deceived. It's poverty that beating the shit out of that person. So they become so humble. And that was the case with Joseph Boakai. Everybody thought, oh, Joseph Boakai sleeps. Joseph Boakai was not sleeping before because he wanted to sleep. It was automatic sleep that poverty placed on him. Hardship placed on him. What's the difference yesterday and today? Since he took office, he and his wife, they have become the youngest couple in Liberia. The youngest couple. Everybody said, oh, he spent 40 years of his life in government. Yes. What message is he sending right now? Everybody crying. Oh, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. Even though I don't believe in the cry that people doing every day is hard, because nothing will get solved until you make it solved. That's just a gospel truth. So some of those things, I don't blame government for it. Because Liberians have gotten lazy more than the shy arm. So I don't blame the government for some of those things. You get your ass up, go play your cassava, go play your potato, you get something to eat. But there are basic needs that the government must provide for her people. But everything. Here is wife. They are the youngest people right now in Liberia. Youngest couple. Imagine. George Weah is young to be Joseph Boakai's son. He served the country. He never drove bulletproof vehicle. The man who is one leg is in his grave. He the one spent $1 million or $500,000 on bulletproof. What sense, what logic in that? But we can spend $1 million or $500,000 to build modern school in some village in Liberia. We can spend $1 million to do that. But we will sit down and the United Nations or some organization build school in Banga, then they take useless convoy from a rover and say, oh, the president is going to dedicate school. How can you dedicate something that you built? It's an insult. So some kind of a spirit is in our leader or comes upon our leader when they take offices that say, you know what, that spirit make them feel inferior to themselves. That say, you know what, you are not capable of doing anything for yourself. All you need to do is to loot. And someone will come and build it, and you drive useless convoy, useless people, killing people, children. And you say you're going to how can you dedicate something that you built? I don't understand. Everything in Liberia, the president must dedicate. India say you expire buses, you must dedicate it. President must come and dedicate it. This other country say you expire stuff, the president must come and dedicate it. Common generator, they give it to some ministry in Liberia. The president must dedicate it. So, Liberia president, you just had to dedicate things that you cannot build, but you can loot. A man who serves his country, that is young to be your son, drove vehicle that was not bulletproof. Who won't kill Joseph Boakai? Who want to? But bought a bulletproof vehicle, Lexus, bulletproof. Think about that just for a second. 1.5 million United States dollars was spent on his personal rehab home. Why? Why? Isn't that looting? It is looting. It is looting. So how can you spend $1.5 million on your home? Money that is not yours, money that belongs to the Liberian people. You can't spend that money to build school, modern day school in some village in Liberia, or to build some kind of a modern clinic in some village in Liberia, but you can spend it on your home as his age. Where is the wisdom in it? Go to JFK. People's family are dying every day. Useless hospital. Go to JFK. Even you love your dog, never allow your dog to go to JFK. No matter how healthy you are, you go to any hospital in Liberia, especially government hospitals, you get sick immediately. But they can spend $1 million, 1.5 million on Joseph Boakai's personal home in rehab. And the people suffer. The people suffer day and night. Children can barely afford food to eat. Think about these things before you celebrate. It is also alleged that the Joseph Boakai administration spent $10 million, United States dollar, constructing his Foya villa. Constructing a villa in Foya for Joseph Boakai. 10 million. It is alleged. And senators, some of these senators spoke about it, like Senator Snow. They want to know. They are not in the know where the money came from. 10 million. A man that you said he worked in government for 40 years. He never built villa. Now he president of the Republic of Liberia. $1.5 million spent on his personal home. 10 million United States dollars to build his villa in Foya, Lofa County. So what's the difference between he and Finabono? He didn't even go 2 years in his term yet though. He stayed in his 1 year. Look at this, and this is just few. So what's the difference between him and Finabono that you are indicting her and want to put her behind bars? And all of you guys, most of you are celebrating. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the executive mansion is the official residence of the president of Liberia, not his or her private home. That's the executive mansion. That's the official residence of the president of the Republic of Liberia, not his or her private home. Using public funds for personal property is not leadership. It is nothing but corruption or looting the country. So what's the difference between he and Finabono? I said this earlier. Finabono, the George Weah administration, they looted Liberia on an industrial scale. That is the fact. But Joseph Boakai is also looting Liberia on an industrial scale. And if you are currently doing the same thing, that Finabono Day yesterday, what make you think you can indict her? You can put these people behind bars? Why come after the CDC first? Why not go through the chain of leadership? We can't do that. We can't do that. So it's about time that many of you stop the celebration and begin to ask the rare question. Liberia deserves a new kind of justice, ladies and gentlemen. One that is blind to politics and loyal only to truth. That's the kind of justice system we need. One that is blind to politics and loyal only to truth. I don't know what's the problem between the Joseph Boakai administration and the CDC, but this whole asset recovery team, the way they have started it, is nothing but political retaliation. Justice without fairness is just another form of corruption. So we need to slow down with the celebration. We need to slow down with the dancing when these kinds of things happen. But ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Delano King podcast. Until next time, let's continue to speak truth to power. If you like the show, share our podcast, follow us for new videos. May God bless you, and may God bless our land. Have a good day.